Thank you. My name is Lisa McGiffert, and I am the president of the Patient Safety Action Network, and we're here in support of House Bill 148. Informed consent is a well-established ethical and legal obligation for healthcare providers, but the ultimate purpose is shared decision-making. The doctor considers the known risks and the patient's condition when informing how treatments might impact them to help the patients decide what to do with their bodies. This panel does not determine a standard of care and does not give doctors a standardized script for each patient that fails to relate to that patient's needs. It outlines the risks of various medical procedures, but the conversations between the patient and their doctors, which are not covered by this bill, must deal with nuances such as medical history and urgency. Many invasive procedures have well understood quantifiable risks. When the probability of those risks is well known, they should be communicated through informed consent. We do have concerns when patients receive a long list without actual context. Frankly, knowing that something harmful can happen and not being told its probability borders on useless to patients. This is a government panel with no public members, despite a long-standing recommendation of the Sunset Commission that such panels include public representation. And I can assure you, being on a committee is much better than sitting in the audience or having a few minutes to speak. There are many public members that have the ability to listen to the evidence and research and participate in panel discussions. We are asking for public members to bring in the perspective of the patient who receives informed consent, and a diversity of perspectives is important in our opinion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ware Wendell, Executive Director for Texas Watch. We're a nonpartisan nonprofit that advocates on safety issues, including patient safety. Thank you, Madam Chair, for hearing this very important patient safety bill. We thank Senator Johnson for bringing it in the Senate, and we thank Representative Johnson and Chairman Leach for their work in the House on this important bill.
We call it the Johnson & Johnson, right?
The JJ bill, the Johnson & Johnson bill. I like it. When we're talking about informed consent, we're talking about life-altering decisions for patients, depending on the complexity of the procedure. Informed consent you can trace back to 1947 with the Nuremberg Code in terms of its importance. With the public, we have a couple of barriers here. We have lack of knowledge, but then we can have analysis paralysis when there's too much information on those consent forms. And so it's striking the right balance, making sure that we have members of the public on this public-facing panel, because that's what the work of this panel does. It comes up with the language that goes to the public. Having their perspective as members of the public and those who advocate for the public is so important to make sure that they get to the right language that meaningfully informs people. I would say, by comparison's sake, on the Texas Medical Board, fully 7 of the 19 members of the medical board are public members, more than a third. All we're asking for is 2 members of the public and an advocate who represents patients here. It's important for patient autonomy. And we cast no aspersions on any of the members of the current panel. I'm sure they're all doing great work, but I think hearing from the public on a consistent basis would even strengthen their work and improve their work. With that, I'll yield back the balance of my time. I know you have a very full agenda.
Thank you. Members, any questions?